So I want to talk a little bit more about Biden's plan for providing some financial assistance to low to middle income families. And so if we've already talked about the first-time homebuyer tax credit he's proposing of $15,000, which you could be using immediately at the time of purchase as opposed to retroactively being a tax credit when you file your taxes. But he also wants to provide Section 8 housing vouchers to every eligible family so that no one has to pay more than 30% of their income for rental housing. And so for those of you that don't know or that don't have rental properties or haven't been through that process, Section 8 is it was created by the Department of Urban Housing and Development, and it's a way for the government to essentially pay rent for people that fall under certain income guidelines and standards per area so that they can get rental assistance. And his website, joebiden.com/housing, goes on to say that almost 3 out of 4 households right now do not have the ability to use the government assistance in the form of rent that they're eligible for, which is approaching close to 17 million low-income families. So he wants to create a renter's tax credit to help more low-income families. And personally, I think that's great. What he's saying essentially is that if you're a landlord, you have a rental property, you are no longer allowed to turn away somebody that has payments being provided through the Section 8 program. You are not allowed to say, no, I don't want a Section 8 renter. That's what he's proposing. He also wants to ensure that for those that maybe are slightly above that 30% rule, where 30% of their income is going toward housing, they make a decent amount of money, but they're still struggling, that they provide some federal assistance to allow them to buy the things that they need, groceries, medication, so on and so forth. He's got a great program, I think, for first responders, public school educators, and other public and national service workers through something called the Good Neighbor Next Door program. And I think all that stuff is great, and I don't want to spend too much time on that. But essentially the consensus here, oh, by the way, there's one more thing that I think is really important. He wants to create the Public Credit Reporting Agency, which would allow people to use their rental payments, so long as they're on time, to count toward their credit score. So many people struggle with credit issues. I know because we talk to these folks all the time when they inquire about our properties. And I think the saving grace in our market, to an extent, is the fact that lending standards are fairly rigid. I mean, it's not that easy to get a mortgage. You have to be able to afford the home that you want to buy. And I think that's a pretty safe way of addressing that issue. But for the folks that are renting and making rental payments on time, there should be the ability for them to boost their credit score because of those timely payments. And that I agree with. And of course, it goes in, on his website, joebiden.com/housing, it goes into the racial disparities that are associated with all of this, and that he wants to minimize racial disparities, for example, by ensuring the algorithms used for credit scoring don't have a discriminatory impact. I think all that's great. I do appreciate that. But the consensus, and this is what Biden said, this is a direct quote. He says that the consensus among leading economists is we simply cannot afford not to do what I'm proposing. Independent, respected institutions from around the world, from the Federal Reserve to the International Monetary Fund, have underscored the urgency. Even Wall Street firms have reinforced the logic. So homeowners might arguably be in a better position than renters. I mean, given all this information that I've provided, but many are struggling right now. I mean, millions of Americans are still in mortgage forbearance. 2.5 million Americans right now are in serious delinquency. And we talked last show about this quote unquote wave of foreclosures that's coming our way that's going to crash the market in 2021, and how, frankly, I didn't agree with that. And as these programs roll out, depending upon whether or not this gets passed in Congress and just the overall impact and the ripple effect that it's going to have on this market, don't get me wrong, there will be plenty of people, both renters and landlords and homeowners alike, that do not have tenants, that are just not going to be able to catch up. They are not going to get back on solid ground, and they're going to have to figure something out, whether that be extending their forbearance or creating some sort of loan modification. And if they can't, and if there's really just no chance for them to play catch up, if there's no financial evidence that they are collectible, then yeah, they're likely going to get foreclosed on. So we're going to see short sales. We're going to see foreclosures. Is that going to flip the market? No. There's still such a low inventory of properties that even if a bank has to foreclose on somebody and then relist it as an REO, or real estate owned property, that bank is going to be able to get very close to fair market value for that property. Now, of course, you're going to have all these buyers and investors that want to try and go and buy something for 20, 30% below fair market value like you used to do in the heyday post-recession of 2008. But our market just isn't there right now. So, there are going to be some impacts to this, no doubt about it. But who do you think is going to absorb all of these costs and all of this inflation that's going to be caused as a result of all of these plans that Biden is proposing? Well, first, it's going to be the corporations, because Biden's $640 billion investment in America's housing is going to be paid for by raising taxes on corporations and large financial institutions. Specifically, approximately $300 billion of the housing plan is devoted to new construction and is encompassed in an overall $1.3 trillion infrastructure plan. So the remaining portion of that is going to be paid for by instituting a financial fee on certain liabilities of firms with over $50 billion in assets. Ultimately, again, who's going to absorb those costs? You, the consumer. And then, of course, there's the elephant in the room, which is interest rates. Now, interest rates did bump up a little bit since Biden took presidency. They're still sub 3%, which historically is fantastic. It's unbelievable. It's awesome. It's all of those great adjectives combined. But there's this concern that with everything that's being proposed, that interest rates are going to start climbing up and up and up. Well, at some point in time, don't get me wrong, at some point in time, we're going to have to pay the piper. Right now, the Federal Reserve is the largest buyer of mortgage-backed securities. But as the economy recovers, there's going to be less and less need for the government to essentially artificially leverage the mortgage-backed securities market, which means that as we approach more of a free market, so to speak, interest rates will likely go up. Now, is that going to happen this year? Probably not. Is that going to happen next year? Probably not. The Federal Reserve has said as much, that they, for the next 2 years, are likely not going to raise interest rates, certainly more than 1%. So I don't think we're looking at 4, 5, 6, 10% interest rates anytime soon. The cost of borrowing money is still incredibly low. But there's one portion of Joe Biden's website, joebiden.com/housing, that he doesn't talk about, which is tax reform. And that is going to have an impact on the housing market. It has an impact on everything economically. And so I want to talk about that when we come back. That'll be the final piece of Biden's plan and how it impacts the housing market. Now, again, if you have some questions about the housing market, you want to learn more about what this means for you and your plans to buy, sell, or invest in a home this year, I'd love the opportunity to talk you through it. My number is 843-400-8009. That's my cell phone. You can call or text it, 843-400-8009. Or you can check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And, of course, you can check us out on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify by just searching The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. So stick around for the last segment of The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.